Hey guys, I'm Adam and I just made a role-playing game that fits on a business card. And today I'm just going to show you how I did it. So one of the things that you might have noticed here is that this video is slightly different from the rest of the lineup. What has happened is that I always have a long lineup of videos so that I get time to shoot each video. But because this is part of the Pleasure Not Business card RPG jam that has a specific deadline, then I'm inserting this video into here so that, well, you can enjoy it and you get time to submit something of your own if you want to. So this is my solution. It is a game called Screenwriter. And you're basically a screenwriter making a manuscript and trying to make as much of a movie before the budget gets too big. And the interesting thing that I have with this one is that you fold it up in half, and then depending on what happens, you either flip it like this or turn it around. Now, the reason why I made this video is because there's two design concepts that I'm not sure if they're correct or whatever, but I use them into making this role-playing game that I think could be useful. One of them is thematically linking up the game mechanic with the narration of the role-playing game and the context and setting of the role-playing game. And the other one is something that I'm dabbling into, which is called affordances, which is very useful when you have a very small format like this one. So the game is very simple. You are supposed to write a manuscript where you describe each scene. You roll 3d6 and apply this here to the roll against this here stat, and you roll under. And depending if you succeed or not, if you succeed, you turn the page, creating a new scene. If you fail, you can flip the script, which again means that you add a plot twist and you flip so that you compare your roll to this number rather than this one. But if you fail again, you will have to increase your budget. And this is what it does. You either turn the page or flip the script, and depending on what happens, well, you either succeed or fail, and that's basically it. So one of the things that I want to talk about in this video was about thematically linking the game mechanic towards the context of the game. And as you might have noticed, I have flip and turn. So physically you can either flip or you can turn, and this is relevant for the game itself, but also since I'm calling it flip the script and turn the page, that also has a narrative meaning. I mean, you flip the script means you change the narrative, while turning the page would be to continue the narrative. And by thematically linking these two, I don't have to explain a whole lot of why you're doing things. I can just say flip the script and turn the page, and you fill in the rest of the context. Now, the first idea that I had when I came up with these two flip and turn mechanics was that you are an acrobat and you are in the air, and you can either flip and you can either turn in the air. And by just saying in the game you're an acrobat in the air, you can flip and turn, I've spent, well, is it 10 words or something, and I've given you a full load of thematic context that you can use in the role-playing game. But if I would say you're a superhero, you can flip and turn, it's not thematically linked to a superhero, so I would have to say, well, flipping would be that you're flipping your abilities, or you're using a different ability than you used last time, and turning would be that you turn the tides of something. I mean, see, I just have to explain all the context because the context isn't directly linked to the game. And that's why when I first came up with flipping and turning, I just Google flip idioms and figure out the rest. And again, I get like see you on the flip side, or flipping the bird, and or flip someone off. And I mean, it would be really cool to have a role-playing game where you just, yeah, I flip you off. Yeah, that's what I feel about this situation, right? So thematically linking these was important, and that's why I came across flipping the script and then turning the page, which again is linked to scripts and manuscripts and writing and narration and so on, which is again something that is very closely linked to role-playing games. The second design thing that I want to talk about is affordances. Now, I've just recently noticed what it is, so I'm definitely not the correct person, and I definitely need more research in order to understand what it actually is. But basically, it is how you design stuff so that it gives you a feedback of you're doing the correct thing. It's the same where you have doors and the type of handle that you're using on the door that will automatically tell the user which way to open the door. All of these things, they're part of the affordances when it comes to design. Now, an important aspect of this role-playing game is that it has to be set up correctly. It has to it has to be folded 90 degrees, and it has to have numbers on each side, and it has to be put on the table forward like this, so that you will have one side facing you. Having explained to you and explaining the flip mechanic and the turning mechanic and how to do that, it requires both an explanation, and it also requires the player to get a feedback from whenever they're doing this to say, this is the correct way you did it. So one important thing about this is that I have a tutorial, which I've used like red ink font that looks like you're correcting the manuscript, which is another thematically thing here. And I really need to explain a lot of stuff about how to set it up like a wedge like this here, and how you're able to do the flip and turn mechanic. And one thing that I've noticed is that, for instance, here, there's a lot of space right here to explain stuff, while compared to here, this part is already containing a lot of stuff, so I don't have space to explain much. Again, over here, you can see this is very bare, so here I have a lot of space to explaining stuff. And therefore, I wanted to have the player travel around on the card to figure out what to do. So you might see here that I have like start here, follow red arrow and numbering, and then you go and you start with number 1, and then you go over to 2, and then you say do the same for all 2s, which again means that the player is starting to search like where, oh yes, here is another stat, and here's another one, and so on. And so they're already starting to travel around. Now, one thing there is about affordances is that I need to tell the player to fold the card 90 degrees. And as you can see here, this is step number 6, fold the card 90 degrees towards you. Now, the reason why I chose towards you here is because it's very easy for the player to fold it against you like this, right? And again, this is not a problem when you're using the pro version here, but it is a problem because that will ruin the narration afterwards. So when I say towards you here, I also have number 7, which says place this side on the table. Again, that means that whenever you're folding like this, you fold it here, and then you place this on the table, you can see that number 8 already comes written directly to you. Now again, if I just said fold card 90 degrees, people would probably, some people would fold it like this. And then where would number 7 be? Yes, it's inside here where it says place this side on the table, which would probably look like something like this. But then again, the text is upside down and number 8 is under here, which should, well, it doesn't really make sense, right? So the narration that I'm telling here, you're saying go to number 6, then use number 7 there, which leads to number 8. Again, you're giving feedback that to the player you're doing things correctly. So what I might have noticed is that I don't have a lot of space to explain the whole game mechanic. I'm telling you to roll 3d6 under, and then I'm just telling you what happens if you succeed. So whenever the player starts the game, they just apply a random stat right here. That's just a random 3d6. And then they roll a 3d6 against that stat. So you're just basically rolling a 3d6 against a 3d6. And that's a 50-50 chance of succeeding. But I also have the apply this. And that is remove highest die if seed contains a MacGuffin. The thing is that whenever you roll a 3d6 and remove the highest, it's a very high chance that you will succeed this roll. So I'm basically statistically thinking that the player most likely will succeed this roll. Most players that will play this game will succeed this roll, and then they will see number 9, which says, well, turn the page if you succeed. Rotate the card 180 degrees. So most players will succeed and most of them will end up here. Then I start with number 10, continue, which is just describe, roll, apply, right, against this one. If you fail, and here you can see I'm starting to explain what failure means. And the reason is because here, again, you're rolling a 3d6 for the stat, and a 3d6, re-roll the lowest die. Now, again, this just seems like, okay, it seems like a neat little dice mechanic gimmick, but re-rolling the lowest die is actually a fairly high chance of failure. So what happens here is that the player will first succeed on this side of the page, most likely succeed on this side of the page, then go to this side of the page, be explained what happens if you fail, and that is because they're most likely be able to fail on this side. And then of course they will say, okay, you increased your budget by $1 million and use a d6 to keep track, or you can try to flip the script to avoid the failure by flipping the card. And whenever you flip the card and you do it correctly again, you will get another feedback that said, if you flip, compare your roll against the new stat instead. Right? So already you're going through the motions of, oh, did I do the flip correctly? Yes, I did, because I get a feedback that I did something correctly. If you flip the card 90 degrees this way, or if you flip it like it doesn't make sense. You don't see where number 11 comes in, but whenever you do this motion, 11 pops straight up. So whenever you have the problem of explaining a lot of stuff, but you don't have the space to do it, then affordances will actually help you, because then you can give feedback to the player to say, yes, you're doing this correctly. You tried this and you did something and you got feedback that what you did was correct. I hope you liked this video. It was a little bit improvised, but it was fun to do, and I really hope that it encourages you to join the Pleasure Not Business Card RPG Jam. I'll leave a link to it in the description. And please like, share and subscribe. I have a lot of good stuff coming towards you in the near future, so please hang around to see it. And of course, email this to your GM, they'll probably like it. See you around.